Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Girl Be Selfish podcast. I am your host, Chanel McCoy. I am the CEO and Clinical Director of Oasis Wellness Group. We are a mental health agency and advocacy agency, mental health counseling and advocacy agency, I could say. And I'm super excited to be back with another episode of the Girl Be Selfish podcast. As I have been telling y'all all season, this podcast was born out of an anthology project that I put together of 21 amazing authors who have amazing stories of self-care. And so I'm super excited because this first season, we've been completely focused on bringing our authors so they can tell you more about their chapter and just give you some self-care nuggets. So make sure that you tune in, you tell somebody else to tune in, you like, subscribe, and share, because today is going to be yet another amazing podcast interview. Before I get to my guest today, I just have one question. Why have you not yet gotten a book? Listen to me. If you have not yet ordered your copy of Girl Be Selfish, the anthology, you need to make sure you run to Amazon. In a minute, Dr. Danita is going to introduce herself. She will have copies of the book and we will tell you to get it. But I guarantee that after today's episode, you are going to be running to make sure that you grab your copy. So without further ado, I would like to introduce one of my highly esteemed authors, and a woman that I admire very much from afar, from the work that she does in the mental health community, Dr. Danita Thompson. Can you introduce yourself?
Oh, hello, Chanel. Thank you so much for having me. As you have said, I'm Dr. Danita. I am the owner and clinical director of Mending Hearts Behavioral Health and Family Services. I consider myself a passionate people helper. I absolutely love to bring emotional and spiritual healing and hope to those people who are hurting. I'm a wife of almost 42 years. I'm a mother, grandmother, a friend. Those are the things that I hold very dearly, those parts of me that I hold very dearly.
Awesome. Thank you so much for not only just being on here today for this interview, but also for being one of my authors. I got a chance to read your chapter and it was so good. It was so good. Like, you had so many nuggets in the chapter. And what I loved about it is that you found a way to talk about your journey and how your journey and self-care could be beneficial to other people, right? Because I feel like, especially sometimes as mental health professionals, we can do a lot of talking at people, but it's
Yes.
a whole lot different when you talk with people. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I love about this anthology project, and even with this podcast, is that we're taking the time to talk with people and not just talk at them. And so before we get into your chapter, I always like to start the podcast off by asking somebody, what is your specific definition of self-care?
Well, what I have found is that self-care means so many things to so many people, and it's very unique. And it has meant different things to me throughout the seasons of my life. And so today, self-care means taking care of my entire being, my mind, my body, and my spirit. And I don't think that I can say that I'm practicing self-care if I compartmentalize those aspects of who I am. So as long as the things that I set out to do, and I have a lot of things that I do all day throughout the day, as long as it is being productive for, or being pouring into, I should say, my mind, my body, and my spirit, then I consider that to be self-care.
I love that. You said two things that I kind of want to expound further on. One, you talked about throughout the different seasons of your life, and you talked about compartmentalization. When you say self-care throughout the seasons of your life, right? Because I don't think a lot of people really realize that your self-care this month may not be what your self-care looks like in 6 months,
Right.
depending on what life throws at you, and it looks different. So can you just talk a little bit about, or give us a little bit more about what those seasonal shifts in self-care may look like, and some of the things that may cause some of those shifts.
Yeah. So when I was younger and raising children, self-care looked a lot different. Self-care was get it in where you could fit it in.
Mm-hmm.
And, there were a lot less things on the list, but I did try to make whatever I could do quality, but I just didn't have a lot of time. Fast forward to now not having young children, that I have to, give of that time. But now I'm in the season of being a business owner, being an entrepreneur. So my self-care routine, being an entrepreneur, I don't necessarily have to get into the office at 9:00. So I can take a little bit more time, even though I am stretched. But as a business owner, I might give more attention to my mind, or just different, different seasons cause me to give more attention to an aspect of me that I might not have had to do, or maybe not have had to do as much in in another season. Now that I'm 60. And post-menopause, some of the things that I have to do for me are very different, in terms of the types of exercises are different. I'm eating a lot differently. You can eat a whole lot of stuff when you're younger, but now that
Is that what you know? It catches up.
Yeah, and just how I spend my quiet time. I have more time for quiet time. When I get home from a day's work, I don't have to, get into the mode of parenting and, doing those types of things. So.
Yeah, I love that. And what you bring up for me is just the understanding of the importance of self-awareness, because you talked about knowing what I need in this season of my life. And I think one of the things that impedes people's ability to really dig into self-care is not knowing what you need, right? It's like, I know I need something. And so then what do? We do all the cliche stuff. We go on vacation, or try to get a getaway, or try to go to the spa, get my hair done, nails done, and we call that self-care. But in this season, it may be going to the doctor and getting all your checkups and make sure your body is in order.
Right. And I had to find that out as well. Now that I'm at the age that I am, I'm doing a lot of research and education on how to care for my body at this age, because it is very different. And so it does take a lot of education as well, educating yourself, because we can't depend on other people to, to do that for us.
Absolutely. And I even want to take it a step further and say, even as women of color, because we've learned to ignore like the signs, like you get those pains, right? And it's just like, oh, there's just a little pain in my back, or whatever the case is. And I remember one day going to a doctor, and he was like, you do realize pain is not normal.
Right.
You shouldn't feel anything, and like you shouldn't feel your body necessarily,
right,
like in a normality. And I was like, because you're used to, oh, that headache comes and goes, or I always have that little pain in my leg, and we learn to push through those things, and we ignore the signs, right? Which is why people of color are at the forefront for a lot of diseases and stuff, because we don't do the necessary steps to take care of our person, because we're just used to living in a state, and we just live in dysfunction, right?
I think also we're just accustomed to the mindset of pushing through, and strong Black women, and we just have to continue to do what we have to do, and we don't have time to sit and think about what's not going right, whether it's our body, whether it's things in our life. We have to keep going, and it's probably a post-traumatic slave concept. Just push through,
Yeah, and well, that's a whole nother podcast topic. When you talk about that post-traumatic slave syndrome, that's a whole other topic we can't even get into today. But that's real. Like, it's real. understanding these concepts. So just wondering, what did you find were some barriers for you being able to really engage your self-care journey at different seasons in your life?
So the last, what I would say, point in which I felt like I hit a wall and was not exercising, really what I needed to do to feel at my best. I think my personality type tends to be a hindrance. We all have our personality types that have strengths and weaknesses to our personality type. So according to the Myers-Briggs 16 personality types, I'm an INFJ advocate. And so I'm always out there trying to make life happen for somebody else, trying to push somebody else. And it's always someone else that I am, trying to meet a need for. And for our personality types, we very rarely get to the point where we see that we're trying to meet so many needs that it's not working for us. And we've gotten to the place where we have stretched ourselves so thin before we realized that we needed to take a step back, and that one last person wasn't who we were supposed to save. We were supposed to be there. And my role, I was bivocational. I was a pastor and the business owner of a mental health clinic. And I was just stretched completely thin. And I was preaching mind, body, spirit, wellness. I was still eating well and exercising, but I wasn't taking the time to just pull back and rest.
Yeah, I think that is so important. You bring in an interesting dynamic and understanding personality types and different things like that. I recently have been a fan of and have been studying the Enneagram.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, like when I tell you that thing is so spot on. And so I'm an Enneagram 4, which is like the deep feeler, like we romanticize life and, all of that. And so it's interesting. And then my husband is a 2. And according to the Enneagram, 2s and 4s should not be in relationships, which is really interesting. It's like the biggest red flag when you read up on it. And we think it's hilarious because like we're doing great or whatever. But there are times when I do notice that, okay, this is a personality thing. Like I'm a deep feeler, and kind of like you, always others focus. And I feel people, right? Like I feel people, and it causes me to be so others focused that sometimes like I'll completely forget about myself. Like the small things, like, did you eat today? Like, I get midday and I feel like I'm about to pass out and I'm like, I didn't eat. But I'm going around telling everybody else, make sure you eat, that kind of thing. And I think it's just, and it's not a small thing, but it is a small thing, just remembering us in our day-to-day and remembering ourselves and our schedule. I recently spoke on a panel, and one of the panelists talked about how the first 2 hours of her day she dedicates to herself. And I loved it. She said, when I wake up, those first 2 hours are mine. No phone. I'm not available for phone calls. I'm not available for clients. If I want to sit down and have a 2 hour with my coffee and watch whatever I want to do. And just this concept of, because she's right. Once I get started in my day, I don't know when I'm going to find any more time. I don't know what the day brings, but I know I have control over that first part of my day. Yeah. So at least daily, I know I have that time for myself.
And that's excellent. And I had decided, I don't think that I've gotten completely there, but I had decided that I was going to tithe the time, 2 hours and 40 minutes to myself. I don't have that time necessarily. I don't make it all in one block. But I have programmed in my phone to take these pauses throughout the day. And those pauses add up just for me. Take time to sit and do, some breath work or just think about what I was thinking about so that, I can make sure that my thoughts haven't been like a runaway train wreck or, and also ending my day with some time for me, even if it's just playing games on my phone to wind down, for a few minutes or so. That's my goal, to tithe.
I love that. I love that. Listen, for all of you who are listening, that is a golden nugget right there. Tithe to yourself 10%
Mm-hmm.
of your day. 2 hours and 40 minutes. And like Dr. Danita is saying, it does not have to be, okay, I got to find 2 whole hours, because you
Mm-hmm.
may not, but it could be, I'm going to go sit in my car for 20 minutes on my lunch break, or,
Mm-hmm.
you can find that time during the day. Oh, this is what the other panelist said. And it like blew my mind. She was like, if you're looking for your time, pick up your phone and look at your social media log.
Yeah.
I was like, she was like, your social, and it's
You
right.
find your time back.
Your logs, how much time you spent scrolling these different apps where you're saying that you don't have the time. We find time for that. So surely we can find time for ourselves throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
love that. And I think that's a practice that I'm going to try to put in place for myself. That 10%
Mm-hmm.
of my day dedicated to myself. 10%
Mm-hmm.
of the day. That's it. I
Yeah.
love that. Okay. So you are one of the esteemed authors of the Girl Be Selfish book. Why don't you introduce your chapter, tell us what your chapter's name, and then give us some, don't give it all, because the people got to go buy the book to get it all, but give us some nuggets or a little bit about your chapter.
Yeah. So my chapter is called Set Your Body Free. And for me, I feel like caring for your body is one of the best gifts that you can give yourself. You can give your family, to those that you're called to either mentor or just to the world, because we all have something to give the world.
Mhm.
And so it's a gift that keeps on giving, caring for yourself.
Yeah.
And so I think I shared earlier that I'm a big proponent of healing integrated, and not compartmentalizing your healing, and, people running to the church to, get their spiritual healing, and then to the counselor to get emotional healing, and then to the doctor. And only when one of those parts hurts,
That part.
rather
Yeah.
than always caring for all the parts of self.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I shared how I got to the point of making sure that I was going to daily care for
Mm-hmm.
myself, not just in the morning, but throughout the day. I consider self-care a process or a lifestyle, not a process, a lifestyle that
Mm-hmm.
I do throughout the day. And so in doing so, I'm personally not anymore. I'm not a get it in where you could fit it in. So I'm pretty regimented. And I
Okay.
have a regimented schedule that I start in the morning. And like I just shared, I pause
Mm-hmm.
throughout the day. And then I have the things that I do at the end of the day. I think it's just important to be intentional about whatever you're going to do.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I eat well. I do take supplements. I take the supplements that I need as a 60-year-old. I exercise daily. Sometimes it's a walk. Sometimes I exercise to a YouTube. I'm not a gym girl. It just
Mm-hmm.
doesn't work for me. If I have to drive, I'm not going to do it. Um,
That's real.
and I don't mind
Mm-hmm.
using a YouTube. I'm disciplined enough to get up and put on a YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Spending the time with God, listening to podcasts to motivate me. So I have
Mm-hmm.
all of these different things that I do during my workouts. I habit stack. So I don't always have time to do each thing
Mm-hmm.
one at a time. So
Mm-hmm.
while I'm working out, I may listen to something for professional growth. I may listen to something to motivate me. I may listen to something for my spiritual
I love
development.
that.
And so those are the things that, I do. Eating well, taking care of my emotional health. I have a therapist, even though I am a therapist, caring for my spiritual health and caring for my mental health, my body.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the things that I will not compromise, and I feel great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel
I
great.
love that. I love that. One, let me just say, I too have a therapist,
Hmm.
and I love my therapist. And I just love to hear other therapists just
Hmm.
embracing, making sure you do that part for yourself as well.
Hmm.
But I love this idea that you talk about habit stacking. I love that.
Hmm.
the idea of, because sometimes we do make things harder. Like we
Yeah.
think about, first I have to do this, then I have to do
Mhm.
this. But if I know that I have to study or listen to something or whatever while I'm driving, pop that on instead of putting on
Mhm.
the radio.
Yeah.
If I'm cleaning the
Mhm.
house, I could be listening in the background, right? Listening to books. I did a lot of that when I was studying for my licensure exam.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I knew I wasn't going to read a book. Like I just was not going to read a book. So I got the audio, and while I was driving, I
Mhm.
would listen
I
to
do
the
too.
audio, and I would just inundate myself with the
Mhm.
audio. Because if I had to find the time to sit down and make it happen, it wasn't
It wasn't
happening.
gonna happen. I know.
It
Mhm.
just wasn't happening. No matter how much I wanted it to, it just
Mhm.
wasn't happening. So I love that idea, and I think that's a great nugget for people to figure out, how do you do things together, right?
Mhm.
I'm a gym girly, because if I stay at home, I'm gonna sit down on the couch with a bag of chips and watch them exercise. I try, and I'll be sitting on the couch watching them exercise. But I've seen my gym is an all women's gym, and a lot of times
Mm.
what they'll bring their kids to the gym, right? Like
Yeah.
if these
Mhm.
moms who they're just like, okay, I need to get my kids out the house anyway. They'll bring their kids to the gym, and then they'll get like these little kiddie weights, and they'll run with their kids or different things like that. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, I love that. It's
Mhm.
You're still able to do what you do. You get the kids
Mhm.
out the house, you get them moving, get them tired, and you still get your workout in, right? And it's free babysitting, because we all love the kids. But
Yeah.
this idea of habit stacking, I think, is amazing. I really
Mhm.
think that's an amazing idea. And you did share a little bit in your chapter about how you got there. Can you just share with us just a little bit on what was a turning point for you in your journey, and like, okay, self-care has to be key for me in this season?
Yeah, so it was actually during the pandemic. My role as a pastor and as a business owner just brought it in and of itself. That role is a lot.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm,
During the pandemic, it seemed like it just stretched me to the max, with people calling, and not only in the workspace with everyone that needed help, and I'm also leading people who are hurting. It was so overwhelming for me. And then
mhm,
I felt like I was on 24/7.
mm,
And that feeling, and women in general are on, because we just have so many responsibilities.
mhm.
And so at that point, I felt like so many people were sucking every
Yeah,
ounce of my strength. And
yeah,
not because they didn't really need the help, but it was just so many people that
yeah.
needed help. And because of my personality, I'm giving, 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 giving. And I was so accessible: text messages, phone calls, emails. And I just hit a wall.
Mm.
And I got to the place where I'm like, I love people, but today I hate people. I don't,
It's real. It's No, that's so real.
I don't really like these people that I'm called to serve. I don't want to
Right.
see them anymore. I don't want to do anything else for them.
Mhm,
And I'm like, this is dangerous, because
mhm.
my personality says you love people. You're a passionate people helper. And so
Right.
now you're at this place where you don't even like the people. I just felt like I was suffocating.
Mm,
I
mm,
felt like, and I wrote this in the chapter, that I was just being sucked into quicksand, but slowly.
mm.
And like the fear of, oh my God, I'm just going to lose it. I'm going to
Yeah,
lose my life. And so that was my turning point.
yeah.
When I knew I had nothing left to give, but there was all these expectations of people still wanting and
Mhm.
needing from me. And I decided, my therapist says, you need to cut something off your plate. I used to be excited that I could function on a full plate.
Mm.
And he's like, that's not something to be proud of. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Right, right.
So you have a full plate for everyone else. What are you going to do for yourself? So I had to make the decision to cut something off my plate, and I made a decision to take a sabbatical from ministry.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I my counseling ministry was paying my bills. And so I had to take a break someplace. And so I did take a break from ministry. And it was the best decision that I could make because I wasn't good for God's people at
That's
that
so,
time in my life. I
yeah,
wasn't good.
yeah,
And this is another subject, but I wish more leaders would recognize when they're not good.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I give you so many kudos and so many props for doing that because, okay, this is not a topic of ministry, a conversation of ministry, but there's so much that even has to be touched on there because
Yeah.
it will drain you. And like you said, it's not because they don't need the help. It's
Mhm.
because you're in position to be a helper.
Mhm.
But everybody thinks they're the only one.
Yes.
Everybody thinks they're the only one, right? And so then calls are coming in hot and
Mhm.
heavy. People are pulling you to the side after service because everybody thinks that they're the only one, not
Yeah.
realizing I have all of these people I'm trying to serve. That doesn't even count towards my family and what's going on in my family and service.
Yes. Yes. And at that time, I actually was going, we had a number count, so I couldn't get it all in, but I was actually going through some serious family challenges at that time as well. But people don't recognize what's going on in your life. They just know that they need your help. And when they need it, you're supposed to be there for them.
Yeah, that part. There's so much I want to say about that. Oh, there's so much I want to say about that. I'll refrain for now, but it is such a conversation that needs to be had, especially for ministry leaders.
Absolutely.
And not just for ministry leaders and taking care of themselves, but for the people who pull on ministry leaders.
Mm-hmm.
That is an area and a topic that people don't often talk about. Like we always talk to the leaders, but we got to talk to the people too who pull on the leaders.
Yeah.
And remembering that leaders have life too. Like I'm not a pastor, but a minister and executive leader in my church. And I can't tell you how many times I get pulled to the side because I walk by somebody.
Yes.
Because like
as
I
if
walk
you
by
didn't have someplace you were going.
Right. And I'm just like, I'm so sorry. I didn't notice. And like people are like really hurt. You walked by me. You haven't said nothing to me. And we'll count the days. Like it's been 3 services.
You know, that really happens. That happened to me as well. Somebody actually left the ministry because she said that I didn't speak to her on an anniversary Sunday when I was hyper focused on making all things right,
Right.
Yes.
Right. And so a conversation for the people. If you are a person who serves under leadership, especially in the sake of ministry, please understand that your leaders are human too, and you do not know what they're dealing with, right? There are times I'll walk into service, I'm not feeling well, or my pastor has need of me, or I'm responsible for the experience in my church. So once service starts, that's Chanel's responsibility. I got to make sure the sound is going, the greeters are in place. I got to make sure the mics are working, musicians are doing what they have to do, all of that. And so it's never intentional, but give your leaders a break. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Know their hearts,
Yes. Yeah, that's another podcast topic for a whole other day that we may have to come back and talk about that. And especially, and that's what I experienced just as a minister. I can't imagine as a pastor. I can imagine as a pastor the level that goes up. And so making the decision for yourself to take a sabbatical, what I wanted to say on that is when you said realizing that I wasn't good for the people. And I think that takes a lot of spiritual and emotional maturity of knowing when I need to step back because sometimes we can become the problem. We don't do what we have to do for ourselves. So I commend you so much on that and kudos to you on that and knowing that this is what I need to do right now. And like you say, my counseling ministry is paying the bills. So there's no such thing as a sabbatical from that. So I have to figure out realistically, what can I remove from my plate? And then this season is that. So kudos to you for that. I think that is so huge. One last question I want to ask you. How did you, because I think oftentimes people struggle with, okay, I know I need something. I feel like I'm burnt out, I'm breaking apart, but they don't know how to start the journey. What was it for you when you talked about that transition of the pandemic and noticing, okay, I need to do something different? How did you intentionally start your journey?
So I think it I think what motivated me most was where I was, and
Mm-hmm.
that was um, what pushed me to say you absolutely have to start somewhere. I couldn't do everything that I knew
Mm-hmm.
to do, but I had to start somewhere. And so I decided that counseling was where I was going to start. I was already eating well
Mm-hmm.
and I was exercising, but that part of me, my own emotional health, while I'm helping other people emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
was the place that I knew that I needed. If you are, you know, say you're overweight, or say you haven't been moving, or say there are so many areas of self care that just start one thing. Just
Mm-hmm.
start one thing and
Just one.
one thing and be consistent with it. If it's going to be just starting to hydrate, that can do a world of good.
Mm-hmm.
Just start going to bed on time.
What
Get
a
enough
concept.
sleep. There are so many basic things that can change your life, that you don't have to completely get a whole new routine of 5, 7, 8 different things. You
Right.
can begin to add things, but very simple things. And Google can be your best friend.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Google can be your
Mm-hmm.
best friend, and all the different ideas. Just practice gratitude
Yeah.
daily.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that does something to your spirit, to your emotions. It brings a calm to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that, especially when you say just one thing.
Mhm.
Because a lot of times, and I know working with clients, it's like it has to be this marathon. Like, okay, I'm gonna do self-care.
Yeah.
I'm gonna lose 10 pounds. I'm gonna go to the gym 3 days a week. I'm gonna change my eating habits. I'm gonna go for a walk. I'm gonna wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm going
Mhm.
to bed. And it's just
And do
like
not they end up doing nothing because it's too much.
exactly, like it's too much, right? It's find that one thing that you can do and that you
Mhm.
can be intentional about, and then just do that. Even if it
Mhm.
is, I recently and I share this publicly now because like everybody's not with it, but I recently started acupuncture as a part of my
Mm.
journey because
Mhm.
I have fertility issues and I didn't want to take a medicinal route. I didn't want to take a medicinal route. And so I decided I'm gonna try this acupuncture thing. And what I'm learning so much about my body, like she's literally forcing me. I just need you to go to bed 1 hour earlier.
Mm.
Because what your organs do with just
Yes.
going to bed 1 hour earlier.
The recharge. Yep.
Yes. And
Through
like the
the night.
circadian
Mhm.
rhythm of
Yep.
your body,
Mhm.
like there's so many things on the inner workings of our body that we don't
Mhm.
know, we don't understand. It's not just getting sleep for the sake of, oh, let me make sure I rest,
Right.
but your body literally heals
Mm.
in your sleep. And if you're not
Mhm.
sleeping well, if you're not like there's sleep cycles, like you gotta
Right.
eventually
Right.
go into the deep sleep. Some of
Mhm.
us don't even get there because we get into bed at 4 o'clock in the morning and we gotta be up at
Yeah, yeah. Or don't prepare well.
exactly.
We go in with having had the blue light for until we actually are ready to close our eyes,
Mhm.
and or sleeping with the television on. You're not going to get all of
Exactly.
the cycles of sleep when you sleep with the television on.
I
Yeah.
feel attacked. I feel attacked because I sleep with the TV on, and I have a hard time not. But even that, like I love to play games on my phone too.
Mhm,
Like that's like my thing. But even learning to put that down,
mhm.
I set my phone now. My phone goes into sleep mode at 10 o'clock.
Yeah,
So at 10 o'clock, the screen goes dark and certain things are locked on the phone. And it's just like
that's
soon as my
good.
phone goes dark, I know, okay, put it aside.
Mhm,
But just these small adjustments, just going
mhm.
to bed an hour earlier so my body can do what it is naturally
Yes,
designed to do
yes.
makes a
Mhm,
huge difference. And
mhm,
when I tell you, I've only so far at this point, I've only had about 4 treatments and I'm noticing a major difference.
mhm.
A major difference without medicine. Who
Yeah. There are a lot of Eastern practices that a lot of people have a hard time, especially in the Christian
Mhm,
world, have a
mhm,
hard time ascribing to. And I'll just say, just because a group puts their name on something, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are the authors of it.
that part.
And so meditation, all of that, God is the author of it.
Come
And
on,
so
come on.
There are several practices that I do, like going to these mineral rooms, the salt rooms. I haven't yet done floating, but I do want to do that.
I'm going to do that too.
Yeah. And so all of those are really beneficial, obviously massages and things like that. But those mineral rooms, you come out feeling amazing.
Wow. And so it just reminds me of when I started the acupuncture, because I had all kinds of questions about it. If I'm honest, I'm like, I don't know. And I was reminded of Hosea 4:6, my people perish for lack of
knowledge. Yep.
And we run from what we don't understand. And so my challenge to people now is, don't knock it until you educate yourself on it to really see and understand what it is. Because when I started, and I was very apprehensive going in, and God knew, like, it was so funny because when I walked into the doctor's office, like, it's just Maverick City music playing, like all this gospel music. I was like,
that for you.
I'm like, Lord, you knew. But when I tell you, it opened up something in my body. Like, I can't talk about it all, like all the graphic details, but there's so much that has changed from acupuncture. No medicine. I didn't have to take medicine. I was on the brink of hormonal issues. They were talking about putting me on thyroid medicine for life. All of that stuff went away in 4 treatments.
That's great. That's great.
And so what I found for myself is trying something new. Now acupuncture is a weekly part of my self-care. Is a weekly part of my self-care that touches mind, body, all of it, emotion, all of that. And so listen, y'all, if those of you who are listening, educate yourself, get the knowledge. Don't feel like you have to continue to follow the same path of self-care because this is what somebody says. Yes, I love massages. I love to get my hair done. I love to get my nails done and all of that, but it's so much more. And there's so much more out there. And some of the things that you need within your body could be healed without medicine.
Yeah, absolutely. Chiropractic care is good too.
Yes.
Self-aligned.
Yep. So yeah, I don't even know how we got on that topic, but I think it's just so good in helping people to understand that in different seasons of your life, you may need different things and you may have to try something different, but make the decision to do something and do it. And just start there. I love it. Dr. Danita, thank you so much for being my guest today on this podcast. Listen, everybody. If you have not gotten a book, like we're just having a conversations, but to be able to have the book, to dive deeper, to get the nuggets out of the book, to have that with you for you to reference, right? There are 21 authors in this book. And so there's such a wealth of knowledge. We're talking about ministry leaders. We're talking about therapists, wellness advocates, and just everyday women who have a story of overcoming and how they use self-care in order to help them to get that. You want to get the book. Listen, Dr. Danita will have books. Make sure that you hit her up. I'm going to have her tell you in a second on how you can reach her, but make sure you get your book because I promise you it is a tool in your arsenal towards wellness and it's going to be life-changing. So Dr. Danita, how can the people get in contact with you?
So I am on Facebook, Dr. Danita Thompson, and I'm on Instagram, Dr. _Danita. I'm on LinkedIn. I have a YouTube channel. And my website, my business website is mendingheartsbh.com. And then I also have a Dr. Danita Thompson website. So several ways to get in touch with me.
Awesome. And we'll make sure all of her information is in the show notes of this podcast so that you guys will be able to have easy access to be able to contact her if you have any questions, but also get your copy of the book.
That's right.
Make sure that you order your copy of the book because it's going to be life-changing. Listen, everybody, I hope that today's podcast, I hope that it was life-changing for you. I hope that you were able to pull out so many nuggets from today and learn to set your body free. My takeaway from today is make the decision, find the one thing, and just do it like Nike. Just do it. So listen, y'all go out there and just do it. We'll be back with you with our next episode with another esteemed author of our anthology book, Girl Be Selfish. But until then, as I always say, stay selfish. Bye, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.